make sure everybody's okay with that. So, we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, sorry. It's been exposed, and so the guideline is that wear a mask. And so, though I have all vaccines and boosted too, so just want to make sure. That was several days ago, so I'm feeling pretty safe, but just being precautious, and Carter and I are being safe too. So, any questions you guys can ask me too. So. Carter, can you hear us okay?
I can, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll talk about 1 cent. Carter, do you want to say anything about that?
I looked at all of it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The basic impetus behind having this item on tonight's pre-meeting calendar or agenda is really for the purpose of just giving council one more chance to discuss this if necessary. Council gave us some direction during work session the last time we met on this matter, and we have employed that feedback directly into the resolution that you see in front of you tonight, and that will be under your formal deliberation, as it were, on the floor. It would be this resolution, of course, that moves forward as kind of the commitment to the community with respect to how the $64.5 million will be spent over the 4-year period of time that 1 cent 17 is in place, if it should pass in November. And you can see at least categorically how those figures lay out, broken across the variety of categories that we've gone through together as a group. You'll notice at the very bottom of that list, the newest addition, which is the $2.2 million for nonprofit contracts, again pursuant to the direction that you gave in our work session of a few weeks back. A couple other notable items. Street repairs are funded at 4.8 a year. The water and sewer projects are funded with regard to that, the breakout that we talked about last time, and nothing else should really be new at all for the council's consideration. Some of the things that we talked about last time were also with regard to taking some smaller projects out of the building repairs line item, and those changes are reflected here as well. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, if there is discussion needed or questions, we are ready for that.
Lisa.
I do. I'm kind of having some heartburn a little bit with the money that we're putting into streets and then cutting back, I know, the nonprofits. I'm having a lot of heartburn for that. And part of the issue is that I have clients from all over the United States, and I have been particularly working with 10 here in the last couple of weeks. And it blows me away that every single one of them tells us what great streets we have compared to where they came from. And not one of them have a single complaint about our streets, navigating our streets, or the condition of our streets. And I have heard this for years. And I just wonder if the citizens of Casper maybe are just a little bit spoiled. And then we're cutting back nonprofits to make our streets even better, but that doesn't feed people, and that's not helping people. And so I feel like we can afford that $800,000 to put back to the nonprofits, but to that $3 million, because honestly, you know, comparatively speaking, I just am not seeing that we, you know, with the cost of everything, I feel that the nonprofits are more important than the streets.
Carter, do you want to respond to that? Because Bruce has a question too.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, certainly I think that the direction that we have here is consistent with what Council directed from a few weeks back. And I just want to make that point clear. We haven't altered that number with regard to what it is that we thought Council was telling us to do with this figure. Secondly, I would remind Council that with the analysis that we did from an out-of-town contractor, out-of-state contractor, was that indeed the grade that we've earned with the streets network is a 59 out of 100. And even with the funding that we've designated pursuant to what's being proposed on your resolution, which is at that 4.8 figure a year, that 59 is actually going to degrade into a lower grade. It won't keep us at a 59, and it certainly won't improve us over a 59. And so, you know, that's the only dynamic I would want you to be aware of. The last point I would ask to for council's remembrance is that indeed streets ranked really, really high in the citizen survey that was scientifically conducted, and in fact, it was the #1 priority. So I know that figure sounds like a lot and feels like a lot, and particularly when you look at the fact that 64.5 doesn't go as far as it used to. But the 4.8 per year is not as big an investment as it probably should be when you consider the amount of folks that is serviced by our street network here in Casper.
Bruce.
Carter hit every point I was going to make. The only one he missed that was in the back of my head is we're not the only funding source for the nonprofits. There is county money, there's federal money, there's state money. So I'm more than happy with where this budget is, and I think it's right in line with the survey. And I understand people out of town may not think our streets are bad, but the people that live here do, because it was #1 on the board. So that's all I got.
The comments. Steve, Kathy.
I noticed, Carter, you had been stating 4.8 for streets. When I divide it out, it comes out at 5.4.
45.
Do what?
5.45.
Get out of here, nerd.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take every $1,000 I can get.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, do you mind if I respond?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Carter.
I'm sorry.
We're all
see it.
giggling.
That's
So.
okay, no problem. The figure that you're quoting is correct if you weren't deducting the vehicles and equipment allocation of 2.6.
Okay. I can live with the way you got to your 4.8.
Nailed.
You just lost your 0.5. 0.05, I'm sorry.
Other questions about 1 cent? Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I'll take every opportunity to talk about streets that I can. I did just want to remind us that the 59 out of 100 score, but also 13.5% of Casper roads are backlogged, meaning they're poor or very poor. That's above the national average of 12%. Ideally, you'd have a backlog of 10% or less. If we were to maintain our current budget for streets, the amount or the percentage of poor or very poor streets would increase to 25%, much higher, and our overall PCI would drop to 54 over a 5-year period. And so I guess going back to the points that I've tried to make in the past is I feel like this council, it would be very irresponsible of this council to not meet at least that minimum threshold for maintaining streets at their current condition, which is all of this 5.45 or 4.8, whichever number we're running with. That's really all that does is, stop the bleeding. And so I would advocate for more, but I'm okay with this being kind of the first year that we're turning things around and increasing that funding. There's going to be growing pains in other areas. I'm okay with just maintaining right now because I think that's our bare minimum responsibility. But ideally, the streets would get a little bit better under our watch, not worse. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Bruce.
Unfortunately, I just found my iPad, so I read most of this on my phone. But Carter, where did we end up on the police assault vehicle?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, we removed that from the 1 cent prospectus and instead turned that funding over to a Metro application, primarily for the facility, pursuant to the direction we thought we received from council the last time we had this discussion.
Which is what I remember as well. And then my last follow-up question is, I thought we were assured if we were able to reach that $19 million threshold on the streets that it would allow us to maintain the 59 and not lose any. But I heard you say when you opened that there's a possibility we'd be going backwards. And I thought that's why we funded so much, was to keep that from happening.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, thank you for that question. And certainly if Andrew disagrees with my appraisal, I would defer to his commentary. But I would say that when that study was done, which would have been a couple years now ago, the cost for doing projects was quite a bit less than what it is right now. And so I'm suggesting that the 4.8 isn't going to go as far as when the original study was concluded. But again, Mr. Mayor, if Andrew could help me with that answer, I'd sure appreciate it.
Andrew?
Mayor, Councilman, you may recall that a few meetings back, we were looking at 5.5 million, I think, just to maintain status quo. So this is very close, and we're very appreciative, but the overall rating will decline slightly over the next 4 years.
Gotcha.
I don't like that.
Anything else in regards to 1 cent? Okay, let's move to PIO. Carter? Did you have something?
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Carter.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The chief put together an outstanding argument in the packet that you received for this discussion tonight, and indeed is moving forward with the assumption that all things remain the same as it were in regards to hiring Rebecca Ladd's replacement, which brings us here to this conversation tonight. There's two arguments that the chief's memo makes that you probably recall as you read through the discussion. Number one was the improvement for transparency and communications, and I would even say community relationship that Rebecca and that position has helped the department achieve since its implementation back in early 19, i.e. when Rebecca was hired. So my hope is that tonight's discussion isn't necessarily one of whether or not we should rehire that position, but more along the lines regarding where that position should be housed out of instead. And so from that standpoint, and with that assumption in mind, I would offer a couple comments for you to think about. One of the things that the chief's memo argues is that indeed there have been a lot of improvements and advancements made, not only because the position is there, but because the position was housed in the PD specifically. And, my only concern is that, the assumption that that position can't be as successful and as effective if it's located in the city manager's office, I might say isn't necessarily the case. I certainly do think there are advantages for locating a position in the PD. I also think there's advantages for locating the position in the city manager's office, which is what I think the primary suggestion was that brings us to this conversation here tonight. The reality is that position is desperately needed. Ms. Ladd has done tremendous advancements with regard to improving the transparency for the police department and for the organization, I would argue, as a whole. The question on the table tonight that we hope to get some direction on is whether or not that should continue as a position exclusively within the PD as a PD employee, or with regard to being in the city manager's office and dedicated to the PD. And I think that's where we're at tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, got a couple things. Bruce?
Where does the money come from, Carter?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, the funding is exclusively out of the general fund, which is where it's been since its inception in 2019. So the general fund, the police department specifically, if indeed the position were to move, that funding would follow the position.
Others? Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
I almost don't want to see it leave your office. Our police budget's already through the roof. And I think moving that money over there, it just doesn't make any sense. And there's no reason that it can't continue to cohabitate where it's at, in my opinion. Carter, how do you feel about that?
Hold on one second. Hold on, Steve. Go ahead, Carter. You can answer that.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I think that's a fair point. I think there's advantages and disadvantages on both sides of the coin. I think as it relates to relocating the position with the communications and marketing team that's being developed in the city manager's office, there are going to be synergies available intrinsically that aren't as available when those teams are dislocated from each other. And as far as creative synergies are concerned, those are generally best had, if you will, when those folks are together in the same room, sharing ideas and supporting each other's efforts with complementary skills. And so from that standpoint, I think that's an advantage for locating everybody under the same auspices, if you will. From a financial standpoint, that really is a neutral impact in that the funding's already there, and we're not asking for more, and we're hoping to not get less either as a result of this hire.
Carter, as a follow-up, I think the financial impact is going to be down the road, because if we move her over into the PD, it's only a matter of time before the city manager's office is looking for a public information director to navigate through the rest of the city stuff. And so if we keep her in your office, she can wear both hats down the road, which is going to save us money, would it not?
She's still in the PD. She's still at the PD.
Right, but if we put it into his budget, then she primarily becomes his instead of wearing both hats like she's doing now, which I think financially makes better sense for the city. I'm asking Carter for what he thinks of that.
Mr. Mayor, I think with regard to Councilman Nell's observation, the dedication to the police function will not be different. That individual will still be used for primary response to the media for police department events and activities and circumstances that happen after hours and those kinds of things. That will not change. What will change is the way in which that person will be supported from a backup standpoint, from a complementary services provision, if you will, that doesn't exist currently.
Steve Kelly.
Well, right now she is under the police. She is in the police's budget right now. We're talking about moving that over to city manager, but by the same token, with her being a part of the police department, with the police department, that she is a lot more familiar with what's going on. She will have quicker access to what's going on. She will be part of the front line for major incidents involving the police department because she will be in that office. Where if she's across the street, police may be halfway through an incident before she gets the phone call that there's something going on. And if she needs an immediate response from the chief, she is right there with the chief to figure out how they want to address the situation. And that's why I personally would leave her with the police department.
Steve Frill.
Well, the only thing I want to say is that position at the PD obviously has changed the transparency within the police department itself, and that needs to continue. And I think that position should stay over there. If I understand you correctly, though, Carter, you're putting a marketing team together, and I know that you already have a portion of that now. So my comments earlier were simply that we need to duplicate what's happening at the PD at a city management level. And if we already are working on getting that team together, then I think we should move forward with that and have that marketing team in the city manager's office itself, so that the issues that we have of getting information out and transparency for the overall organization should have its own team, and what we have in the PD right now, we shouldn't change. I think that belongs there and needs to stay there. So before I wasn't quite clear on the marketing team, but I understand what you're doing with that team, and so that's my opinion, is I think that team should be finished up and let them be the mouthpiece for the overall organization and keep Rebecca's position where it is.
Amber.
Thank you. I don't have a strong preference one way or the other in terms of where the position lives, but I will say one of my goals that I initially laid down to Carter when I first came onto council was a more cohesive marketing strategy and message coming from all city areas. And so, I guess my preference would be to locate the position wherever that can best be achieved. And I don't think it's impossible to achieve that if the position stays at PD. I don't know, how much it might improve cohesiveness if the position was moved, because I don't know well enough those internal operations. So I guess I would leave that to the people who are dealing more closely with it to hash out. But that was really important to me. It was something I felt like was lacking when I came on, was cohesive messaging. So really, no matter which department messaging was coming to the public from, it all had a very, similar, cohesive look, feel, and you knew that, the entire organization is sort of speaking with one voice. So however that can best be achieved would be where I would put my support.
Bruce.
Thanks. My fear is just growing government, making it bigger, adding positions. We don't have that many incidents to the PD that take her every minute of every day, like our human resources may have, or whatever. And so she can wear those two different hats. And I just worry if we leave her over there, and now we're putting this marketing team together, how long is it going to be before they come to us with looking for an allocation for another spokesperson for the city manager's office or the city itself? And I'm trying to streamline some of this stuff and keep government from getting any bigger. And I guess if that makes any sense, that's where my thought process is. So.
No, we've only got a couple minutes before we have to be out there. Not that we can't be a few minutes late, but Carter, do you need direction from us to kind of tell you where we want this to go?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, council folks, I would say that time is of the essence for us in terms of getting this position filled and putting it in the place that best serves the city organization as much as possible. If council is ambivalent with regard to where that position is, that's totally fine. If council is passionate about having it in one place or another, that'd be helpful direction to have. One thing I can say is we have definitely reaped benefits by having the position as it is. I do think that the synergy and so forth improves if we co-locate the team together. But I want to be clear, I don't think that even if we do co-locate the team together, that we will be able to use that position a whole lot more for representing the city as a whole, more so than using it for the department's exclusive purposes. In that position is in quite a bit of demand already. And if indeed council is interested in us looking at a position that's more available for city representation overall, then we may need to come to you to look at another position at some point in the future. Because right now we have the utilities paying for most of Rachel, as well as Christopher, who will be coming on with us soon, as well to kind of bolster our marketing effort. As it relates to a true blue PIO for the city overall, we just simply don't have that.
So I guess my recommendation, for what it's worth, is leave that position at the police department. If we're already creating this marketing department here, we have Rachel on board doing that, and then Christopher's coming on. That would be my thought. I think the police department has benefited greatly, the transparency, the work that's been done, some of the major things that have been dealt with. I think at some point the city can look at how we can address how we deal with some sticky situations, how we deal with those things. But I agree with Amber that I think we're gonna have a path forward to figure out how do we work that one voice for the city. But to me, I think for us, if time is of the essence, I think we keep that position, the PIO at the police department. It benefits very well for them, and I think we should continue to work forward with the marketing. So that's my thoughts. Carter, will give a thumbs up or tell, I guess, kind of see where everybody's at. Is everybody okay with leaving the position where it is right now with the marketing moving forward?
I know it's gonna go ahead and pass, but I'm
I'm
gonna say
actually
no.
leaning in the opposite direction.
Okay.
As
So I
well.
had 2 people say no, everybody else said, oh, 3.
I'm still
I don't
feeling
feel
pretty
like-
uninformed. Yeah.
I guess it's not
I
really a
don't feel
no or a
like-
yes.
I don't feel like we're the best people to make that decision.
Yeah.
I guess that would be my position.
Gotcha.
I
That's
think
a
that-
good point.
I think that based on, like, these synergies are important to me. I think that the marketing efforts of the city should be cohesive. I don't know where that will best happen, so
Okay.
I would leave that to the people who do.
Okay.
So
Do you hear that, Carter? I think the sentiment is that let's leave things as is, but maybe we're gonna have to maybe look at what this whole plan would look like as we move forward.
I think I understand.
Basically, I think what you said, there's not a great energy towards moving everything around right now, but I also think that maybe looking down the road of how we would make the plan to work on the marketing aspect, PIO for the city, all those things might have to come up to a head at some point. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. Any agenda review? Carter, do you have anything for agenda review?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you out there. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So before we begin this evening, I would like to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones. And please also remember the council meetings are televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. I now call the August 2nd, 2022 regular council meeting to order. All members are present. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 19, 2022 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on July 27th, 2022.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Friel, seconded by Councilmember Egebretson. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With council members Nell and Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, motion passes.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 19, 2022 executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Engelbretson, seconded by, who was it over here? Oh, Councilmember Sutherland. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
Councilmember Johnson, Kathy, Nell, and Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
And I need a correction on my vote on the regular minutes for the 19th. I need to abstain as well. I was not here.
Okay.
Thank you. Chair to entertain a motion to approve by minute action the August 2nd, 2022 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Any abstentions? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
Now is the time that we invite anyone in the audience to come forward and come speak to the council. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we do ask some of the following. Please state your name and address. Please direct all your questions towards the mayor. No personal attacks on the staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will all be referred to our city manager. Questions posed by the speakers may or not be responded to by the council members, and presentations are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed, and no time extensions are permitted. Please note that the public hearings or ordinance each have their own comment period, and please hold your comments until those items have come up. Anybody that wants to come up? Citizen Sweeney. I can't call you Rep, right? I'll call you Citizen Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. I just wanted to offer support on the consent agenda items 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, which relate to the ARPA funds. And these all look like great projects, and speaking for at least Tom Walters, Bill Landon, Steve Harshman, myself, probably pretty much all of our representatives and senators, anything support once we get through the process, and once SLIB does the evaluation and we get to the project, I'm sure all of us will be very involved and help try to push as much as we can on all of these projects. So in the meantime, if there's anything that any of us can do, obviously I'm probably the least educated on some of this, but obviously Steve Harshman and Tom Walters, Drew Perkins are probably our strongest leads. So anytime appropriations is involved, Tom Walters and Drew Perkins would be the choice. So, but please feel free to reach out. So,
All right.
Appreciate your efforts.
Thanks, Pat. Any questions for Pat? Thanks, Pat. Any others? I'm turning the page, so here we go. All righty. Moving on, please read the consent agenda title.
Established August 16th, 2022 as the public hearing date for the consideration of the adoption of the fiscal year 2023 budget amendment number 1.
Chair to entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing date just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Nell, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer, ownership, and location of retail liquor license number 13 from the Kagan Cork to 307 Golf. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 4 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Tremmel to J. Carter Napier dated July 27, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated July 26, 2022. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website dated July 8, 2022. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application filed July 7, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I think the only thing I would add is that the destination for the license in question is actually the old Wyoming Athletic Club. For those of you who may not have picked up on the significance of that address, and you know, it sounds like pursuant to the sale of the business where this license is coming from. The options relating to where this license will end up sound pretty exciting as an alternative for the community to have as a place to go. So that would be all that I would add, sir.
Great, thank you. Council will now listen to public comment, and public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I will ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of the liquor license number 13 to please approach the lectern. Those who wish to speak in favor. Good evening.
Hello, Council. My name is J.R. Boyles. I'm the owner of 307 Enterprises. I know you guys have all seen the memo, and really I'm just here to answer any questions as a representative for 307 Enterprises that you might have in regards to this liquor license transfer.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Boyles?
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, JR. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Hi, Matt.
Members, Mayor, Matt Galloway, 71 Magnolia, number 2. I'm obviously here representing the Keg and Cork. Kind of the same thing as JR. I think you guys know the situation. We're pretty excited for obviously both sales of these licenses. Kind of trying not to talk too much on one before we address that one, so it's kind of put me in a conundrum as to what I can speak on right now. But I will say I have been working with JR exclusively on this, and it's been very, very exciting. I think it's going to be a great add to our community. There's going to be some offerings there that we have not seen in the history of the community. I've been on the pulse of the service industry for quite some time. I'm going to be continuing to work with JR through this process. I would be more than willing to answer any questions at this time as well.
Any questions for Matt? I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Hi, Kyle.
Good evening, Mayor. Kyle Ridgway, 400 East First Street, 82601. It feels weird because I am biased in that I would like to see this approved, but I wanted to speak on a personal behalf for Mr. Boyles and 307 Enterprises. I was their legal counsel for a number of years and worked with those guys when they acquired the Wyoming Athletic Club out of foreclosure. And so I know some things that I can't disclose, but what I will say is for any of you that have checked out what they've done to that facility, I mean, the Wyoming Athletic Club, being born and raised here, I was raised inside of that facility, frankly, with my parents playing tennis for 30 plus years in there. And so for JR and his group to have done what they've done to fix that facility up, to save indoor tennis for this community, which for those of you that know is one of the only communities in Wyoming that has it. And given the situation that that building was faced with, those guys have made a significant investment to rehab that facility and save that as an asset for this community. And so JR and his partners should be applauded for that. And that's as much why I support this project as anything else. Thank you.
Any questions for Kyle? Yeah. Councilmember Ingebretson.
So I do have a question. With all this shuffling of liquor license, do we still have Travis Taylor's liquor license that you guys had procured still hanging out there?
That would be the next agenda item, but we are proposing to move that license into Keg and Cork as part of the acquisition of Keg and Cork. So what's happening here is the license that was at Keg and Cork is being moved to 307 Tennis Club. Our license, which is the old Travis Taylor license, is going into Keg and Cork. That one would be immediately active at Keg and Cork, and the 307 Tennis Club license will be active pursuant to Mr. Boyle's proposal in a short period of time.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks for the clarification, Kyle.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Any others who wish to speak in favor? Okay, at this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to transfer the liquor license number 13 to please approach the lectern. Any opposition? Okay, there being no others to speak for or against the transfer of liquor license number 13, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of ownership and location of retail liquor license number 13 from Kagan Cork, Inc., doing business as the Kagan Cork, located at 5371 Blackmore Road, to 307 Enterprises, LLC, doing business as 307 Golf, located at 455 Thelma Drive.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Friel, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Discussion. Yeah, Councilmember Nell.
I just want to make note that we're not adding the liquor license, we're just transferring them, and because we get a lot of help for that, so
Yep.
I wanted to make sure that was clear to the public.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
Councilmember Gamroth and Pollock abstaining, and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of location of retail liquor license number 5. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Yes, Mayor. Four exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trumbull to J. Carter Napier, dated July 8, 2022. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated July 26, 2022. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated July 8, 2022. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application, filed June 23, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
You know, Mr. Mayor, pursuant to the report just given and the information provided by Mr. Ridgway, I think those are pretty comprehensive reviews.
Perfect. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of location of retail liquor license number 5 to please approach the lectern.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor. Kyle Ridgway with 307 Horse Racing. In favor of the transfer of this license. When we came before you, boy, it was last fall, I guess, when we acquired Travis Taylor's license, and we're in the process of evaluating the Commissary Mall project. As we said, we do right by the city in evaluating that project, and I think we have done that by tearing that building down. The vacant land, I think, looks great, and Pathfinder Federal Credit Union has since acquired that land and has their own set of plans with whatever they want to do with that. So as a result, we said we'd continue to honor our obligation to the city, which was we'd solve the problem that you'd had for a number of years of getting that license in force, and that's what we're doing with our second Casper location here by acquiring Kagan Cork. Some of you maybe saw the presentation we did to the county commissioners. We've already been approved by the Natrona County Commissioners to add pari-mutuel wagering activity at the Kagan Cork. It will have a similar look and feel to the Derby Club that we have on North Center, which has been fantastic and is a fantastic restaurant. I think that chef's the best we've got in town, and the food offering's really unique. We've committed to retain all the employees at Kagan Cork. Matt Galloway is going to stay on board and help us managing the bar and restaurant side, which we'll continue to offer. We're just going to add some gaming activity inside of there with simulcasting and the HHR terminals, which we presented to be something like 50 to 70 terminals inside of that location. And as far as we can tell, you know, in terms of adding the Derby Club in North Casper and then this location, we've kind of found a new customer base, and there's a new feel to the gaming activity from what has previously existed here in town. We think we offer an elevated product, and we're excited to keep that money in Wyoming and reinvest it locally, which is our mission. So I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Any questions for Kyle? I don't think so.
Thanks,
Kyle. Appreciate it. Any other individuals who wish to speak in favor?
Mayor, council members, Matt Galloway, 71 Magnolia, number 2, still. Didn't move in that few minutes. I just thought I'd clarify, or not clarify, reiterate just a little bit. For the public at large, mostly, there's been a lot of questions with regards to oh my God, the keg and cork's going to be gone. It's not going to be gone. We're going to maintain the exact menu, the same staff, the same exemplary service we've been proud of for 10 years. We're one of the few barn restaurants in town that can say, I still have 4 people that work for me that have worked for me since day one. And that's through COVID and through all the nonsense. So we're pretty proud of that. I'm going to be hanging around. They can't get rid of me that easy. So I'll still be there running things. So it's going to have a little bit of a new look, but it'll still have the same feel. And again, we'll have the same menu and things of that nature. I also want to applaud 307 for finally getting this license out of about a decade's worth of retirement. It should have never occurred, and it's by far the longest in my history of 20-some years in this industry, seen a license parked. I think it's imperative that we get it used and get it activated and start moving forward with that as well. I also want to talk about that I have spoken with our client base, our customers, of course, because they've come to me with trepidation, naturally so. And after discussing with them about keeping the things that they love the most the same, that there's just going to be a little different look, their comfort level grew. No one said that they wouldn't be back. They all are looking forward to seeing what we have to offer and hopefully maintaining that relationship with us. That's probably about it. Kyle covered it very well. If you guys have any questions for me at this time, I'd gladly answer those for you.
Questions for Matt? Councilmember Kathy.
Well, is there a particular name that will go with it now? Or is it going to be 307 Horse Racing? And that may have been a question for Mr. Ridgway.
I think that is still a little... Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if it's appropriate for me to answer that.
You bet.
We'll probably, we're still debating whether, we've called all of our locations around the state Derby clubs.
Okay.
And so it will be a Derby club. The question is whether we retain the Keg and Cork brand as a sub part of it for a while transitionally, or whether we call it Derby Club East versus Derby Club Central or what. Some of that has to do with search engine optimization stuff, which we haven't gone down the road yet of creating confusion on maps, but it'll be rebranded with the 307 Horse Racing look and feel to it, but the menu is going to stay the same because the public likes the menu and we'll keep the drinks and everything else.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Any other questions for Matt? Comments? Great. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you guys for your time.
Any others who wish to speak in favor? At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the transfer of location of retail liquor license number 5 to please approach the lectern. Any in opposition? There being no others to speak for or against the transfer of location of retail liquor license number 5, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair to entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of location for retail liquor license number 5 from 307 Horse Racing, Inc., located at 138 South Kimball Street, to 307 Horse Racing, Inc., located at 5371 Blackmore Road.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Friel, seconded by Councilmember Nail. Any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Kathy.
I guess I would just like to reiterate the statement that Mr. Galloway made, is that we are finally putting a license that has been parked for what seems an eternity into service, and as soon as this is approved and the final paperwork is done, within days to a week or two, this will be done and that license will be back in service. So I want to commend you folks for going that route, and 307 Horse Racing for sticking to their guns and living up to your obligation. Thank you for putting it back in service.
Any other discussion or comments? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Gamroth and Pollock abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
We'll give it a second for Amber to get back. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of amendments to sections 17.12.070 and 17.105.010 of the municipal code. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
We do not have any exhibits.
Thank you.
Oh, we do have an exhibit.
Oh,
Excuse me,
okay.
I apologize.
No, you're good.
And this is for the Mountain West telephone? Okay. I think we had a miscommunication down here, but I think we're on the same page.
Oh, good, okay.
We are good. We have one exhibit, exhibit number 1, correspondence from Wallace Trimbath
yep.
to the City Council and J. Carter Napier dated July 21, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do not, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask individuals who wish to speak in favor of the issues involving amendments to Section 17 of the Municipal Code to please approach the lectern. At this time, I would ask individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving amendments to Section 17 of the Municipal Code to please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak for or against the issues involving the amendments to Section 17 of the Municipal Code, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance amending Section 17.20.070 and 17.105.010 of the Casper Municipal Code.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on the first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Egelbretson, seconded by Councilmember Pollock. Discussion. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 35-12, an ordinance granting a franchise to Works Communications Incorporated, doing business as Mountain West Telephone, for the construction and operation of a telecommunications service system.
Give it a second. I know Kyle was abstaining from here. Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Friel, seconded by Councilmember Egelbretson. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Any discussion? Amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Gamroth abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance correcting a scrivener's error in the legal description of ordinance number 29-21 pertaining to the Trails West Estates subdivision and the Trails West Estates number 6 subdivision agreement.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Egelbretson. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Discussion. Amendments. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation replat subdivision agreement and zone change to create the Eagle Valley Addition number 2.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Ingebretson and Vice Mayor Friel abstaining and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Council will now discuss the resolution for the 1 cent 17 sales tax priorities. Because this is not on the consent agenda, it will be open for discussion by council. Please read the resolution by title only.
Adopting priorities for use of the 1% number 17 sales tax and committing sales tax funds to said priorities.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the resolution just read. Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Sutherland. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is the opportunity the council has to formally adopt the distribution of the $64.5 million that would be obtained through a 1 cent 17 cycle should that same tax initiative be renewed by a vote of the public in November. Pursuant to a couple work sessions on the topic, the distribution is put forth as described in your resolution. A couple of notable points pertaining to the council's direction in that regard. As it relates to streets, for example, $21.8 million would be dedicated to the street cost center, if you will. 4.8 of that per year would be dedicated specifically to street repairs. As it relates to water and sewer projects, $2.6 million per year of the 4-year cycle would be dedicated to water and sewer projects on an annual basis. The breakout between the two is yet to be determined. Another significant point that Council was careful to include was $2.2 million dedicated to nonprofit contracts. And other than that, Mr. Mayor, that's my report.
Great, thanks, Carter. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Okay, discussion by the council. Anybody? Councilmember Nell.
I think it's important for the public to understand how much work went into this, how much compromise was made by all of us in order to reach a consensus, and how much the survey had a definite impact on our decision-making process. We literally, if you look at the way the survey came in, which was scientific, we went down the line and we put the priorities where the public asked us to do so. And so I'm proud of the work product. I'm proud of the compromise and the work that went into this. It was a lot of back and forth, but I think we came to a really good spot. So we just need the public to move forward and pass the 1 cent like they've always done overwhelmingly, and that money will do good work within our city.
Any others? Councilmember Egebretson.
So as I mentioned earlier in the pre-meeting, I feel like with our streets that we should put more money into the nonprofits and lessen the street money. We do have a lot of newcomers coming into the city, and they all comment how much they think our streets are fabulous compared to what they came from. I just wish that we had more money to be able to divide out so that we could provide those nonprofits more money.
Any others? Okay. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
Council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
11B1, approving the vacation replat of Lot 1D, Centennial Hills Village Business Park Number 3 to create Centennial Hills Village Park Business Park Number 4 and the associated subdivision agreement. 11B2, authorizing the release of local assessment district lien regarding 1343 Brigham Young Street, Casper, Wyoming. 11B3, accepting a grant from the Wyoming Governor's Big Game License Coalition in the amount of $10,000 for riparian vegetation and soil survey in the River Restoration Project area. 11B4, authorizing a professional services contract between the City of Casper and Dynamic Controls Incorporated for door security hardware and installation at Ford Wyoming Center. 11B5, establishing a 50% cost recovery goal for Highland Cemetery and approve rate changes that aim to achieve this cost recovery goal. 11B6, authorizing change order number 1 with Sheet Metal Specialties for the wastewater treatment facility boiler replacement project. 11B7, authorizing a second amended promissory note and reamortization schedule to the State Loan and Investment Board for Clean Water State Revolving Fund Loan Number 127 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades Phase 1 project. 11B8, authorizing change order number 3 to the agreement with Pope Construction Incorporated for the Fire Station Number 1 flooring project. 11B9, authorizing a contract for professional services with Western Heritage Consulting and Engineering for the Ford Wyoming Center South Walkway Replacement Project. 11B10, authorizing a contract for professional services with RDO Integrated Controls for the Solid Waste Base Station Project. 11B11, authorizing a procurement of goods agreement with United States Welding Incorporated, doing business as Rocky Mountain Air Solutions Incorporated, for the purchase of liquid oxygen for use at the water treatment plant. 11B12, authorizing the submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Water and Sewer ARPA Grant Funding Program for the City of Casper Wastewater Treatment Plant Secondary Concrete Rehabilitation Project. 11B13, authorizing the submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Water and Sewer ARPA Grant Funding Program for the City of Casper Wastewater Treatment Plant Secondary Rehabilitation Project. 11B14, authorizing the submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Water and Sewer ARPA Grant Funding Program for the City of Casper Wastewater Treatment Plant Motor Control Center Replacement Project. 11B15, authorizing the submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Water and Sewer ARPA Grant Funding Program for the Poplar Street Water Main Replacement Project. 11B16, authorizing the submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Water and Sewer ARPA Grant Funding Program for the Poplar Street CY to Collins Utility Replacement Project. 11B17, authorizing the submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Water and Sewer ARPA Grant Funding Program for the First and Poplar Street Utility Relocation Project. 11B18, authorizing a professional services agreement between the City of Casper and Lexipol LLC for the use of the Cortico app.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Ingebretson, seconded by Councilmember Kathy. Mr. City Manager, would you like to comment on any of these items?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Any abstentions or nay votes? Councilmember Nell.
I have a nay vote on 11B9. Other than that, I am thumbs up on everything else.
Okay. Any other abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With Councilmember Nell's nay vote noted and all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Council will now consider minute action items. Please read the consent minute action title.
Authorizing the appointment of Mr. Greg Dixon and the reappointment of Mr. Sean Hauk to the Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda item just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Vice Mayor Friel. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
At this time, we ask council members to bring forward any relevant concerns or items of interest. We'll start over on your side, Councilmember Johnson. Thanks. Councilmember Gamroff.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. Lots of activities going on in the community this week. Wyoming Symphony Orchestra's Wine on the River is tomorrow night. Art Walk is Thursday. Bear Trap up at the Mountain and Hairball at Gaslight are this weekend, so plenty to do. Hope folks get out and enjoy the nice weather while we got it. And then the only other thing I have is just a reminder to folks, our information packet this week includes lots of meeting minutes, the Amico Reuse Agreement Joint Powers Board, both of their meetings, Central Wyoming Regional Water System, their meeting minutes, Central Wyoming Regional Water System Joint Powers Board, Contractors Licensing and Appeals Board, LGBTQ Advisory Committee. So I know there's several candidates running for council office, and their criticisms revolve around transparency. All of these meeting minutes are available in our packets. Everything I feel like we do on council is transparent, and so if you're interested to learn more about the inner workings, I would encourage you to refer to these packets. Thank you.
Councilmember Inga Brunson.
We just had the contractors board last week, and we are in the process of changing some licenses and trying to include another license so that handymen then could get licensed and then potentially be able to pull permits. So that is something that's in the works, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll have that completed. And that's it.
Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you. I was unable to attend my OID meeting because I was out of town, but I did want to give an update about what happened at the meeting nonetheless. We have been working on a revised set of goals for 2022-2023, and we have basically come to a consensus on what the goals will be and have set up a variety of subcommittees to help us reach those goals over the next year. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then did want to invite folks out. One of the newest additions to our OID, the state office building, we'll be having an open house at Art Walk. So if you are out and about during Art Walk from 5 to 7, it's really quite a beautiful building. They'll also be dedicating the public art piece between Art 321 and the state office building. So swing by there on your Art Walk on Thursday to check out that new addition down there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nell.
Next weekend, or this coming weekend, excuse me, Sturgis will be in full swing. So throughout the week, we're going to see a lot of motorcycle traffic, so please keep in mind, check your mirrors before you jump lanes, and let's take care of those guys, which brings me to the fact that I will be partaking in Sturgis, and I will appear remotely next week.
Thank you. Be safe. Councilmember Sutherland.
Thank you. I want to take an opportunity to respectfully respond to some comments that were directed to me last week on immigration specifically, but also including some of the comments that were shared on trans rights. And as I said during my remarks a couple of weeks ago, I think these are really hard conversations, and there is nuance, and I think specificity does matter when it comes to making policy. But we don't make immigration policy here in this room. And I just think that we should be careful about taking national points and stories, which are too commonly oversimplified and often rooted in fear. And I don't think we should apply them here in our community writ large. And so that's why I said something in the first place. I believe we should treat people with dignity and respect. I believe we should try to understand the world from their perspective, especially if it's different from our own experiences, and especially when it comes to trans rights. I think we shouldn't make anyone in our community feel worried about being their truest selves. And I want everyone here in Casper to feel safe and like they belong. So I just wanted to clarify why I made a comment a couple of weeks ago. I'd also love to invite you, Councilmember Nell, to coffee so we can talk about this more sometime. I think we probably share a lot of perspectives that are very aligned with one another, but I just wanted to be clear about where I was coming from on that, so thanks.
Councilmember Kathy.
The only thing I have is we had some visitors in from out of town this weekend out at the Stuckenhoff Shooters Complex participating in the 6th Annual Magpul Wyoming Governor's Match. It was basically a two-gun match, either with your ARs or your pistols, basically 9mm and smaller, nothing long range. It was all close shooting competition. I am not aware of who wound up winning the match, but it's a lot of fun, and they also had a little bit of a forum with legislative leaders here in our state. There was representatives from Cheyenne, Wheatland, here in Casper, and very good conversations about where the gun industry is going and potentially how to help out with some of the lack of knowledge on the parts of people about what constitutes an assault weapon versus a hunting gun. So I think it was a very profitable thing. I wish more people could have been there to heard those discussions. That's all I have.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I have nothing tonight.
Thank you. The only thing that I have tonight is, I think one of the critical parts, and I appreciate both Councilmember Nell and Councilmember Sutherland and you know, having the discussion and being able to have those hard conversations sometimes and differing political ideologies. And it happens more often than not nowadays. With that being said, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of defacing of political signs, and I think our community is better than that. Whatever stance you take, right, left, in the middle, whatever it is, I think our community should rise above that. And I find it to be just a very, very sad testament to political tribalism that we have moved towards. We are a better community than that. And we can have differing opinions, but we can respect one another with that dignity. And we've had these conversations before, and that's what I appreciate about this council. And while I know that it could fall on deaf ears as I say this into our community, but I take pride in the fact that we can disagree on this council and that we can still be friends, that we can still have conversations, we can still laugh, we can do those things. And so as I've seen those political defacings of signs, it just hurts me, just not only as a community member, because I've lived here my whole life, because my kids are the ones that brought it to my attention, and they're in high school and college, and it hurts my heart that our young people see this, and they think that that's okay. We're better than that, and we can do better. So I'm calling upon the community of Casper to do better. It's not a direction we need to go or we should go. It's going down a road that is ugly, and we're better than that, and our community is better than that. Was the only thing that I wanted to say. So thank you so much. The next meetings of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, August 9th, 2022 in the council meeting room, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, August 16th, 2022 in the council chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have matters to discuss regarding litigation and land acquisition. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into an executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session, to reconvene this regular meeting solely for the purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Pollock, seconded by Councilmember Johnson. There being a majority of members present, and a motion to adjourn into the executive session having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present, please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion, and we are hereby adjourned into an executive session. Thank you, and be safe, everyone.